Guess what? The other day, I had an otter come to class or to my webinar. And okay, so it wasn't this kind of otter that hides snacks in its armpits, because that's just so cute. And that would have been really cool if it had been that kind of otter, but it wasn't. So what am I talking about? Okay. Well, I was hosting a webinar. This was a couple of weeks ago, and I'm doing all the things. I'm letting people into the room, and I'm welcoming people, and introducing the speakers for the day, and all the all that sort of stuff you do at the beginning of a webinar. And as I'm getting ready to hand over the webinar to the speakers, I see sort of on the side, I see a big long message come through chat. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to go check that out once I hand things over, because that seems weird that somebody has that much to say right at the beginning. Most people are just saying hi and stuff like that. So I hand the webinar over and I go back and I scroll up in the chat and I see this message and it says, hi, not using her real name. We'll call her Sue. Hi, I'm Sue's OtterPilot. Now, this is not about any one technology. This person happened to be using Otter, and it gave me an excuse to wear my cute shirt and talk about otters. But this is not about the technology. I have used it. I know a lot of people use it. They love it. Some people don't. It's a tool. I'm not making any comment about the particular tool that this person was using. Okay, this is just about a larger picture. Having this experience of having OtterPilot show up in a webinar just kind of took me down a rabbit hole, to stick with the animal metaphors, I guess. Sent me down a rabbit hole, and I was thinking of a ton of different questions that it sort of generated for me. And they're questions that I think all of us should be thinking about, because this is not going to be an isolated incident. So the OtterPilot announces its presence and says, hey, I'm here. Basically, I'm going to transcribe. I'm going to take screen captures. I'm going to summarize, and just generally be helpful, and all that. So that's not the exact message, but it definitely has the words transcribe, screenshots, and summarize and summary in it. So we go about the webinar, and everything just goes along accordingly. Afterwards, as I said, it generated a lot of questions for me, and they fall into three main categories. One has to do with privacy. One has to do with what it means to participate in our current work and learning environments. And the third has to do with design choices that those of us who design and deliver content probably should be thinking about, because it's going to impact, or it should impact, the choices we're making. So first thing is privacy. And I'm going to go lightly on each of these. I would love to hear what you all have to think about these topics. And if you're having similar conversations or questions, I think there's a lot that we could really dig into here. So as far as privacy, this webinar was one that I was hosting on behalf of an association, a membership association. And so I had permission from the speakers to record the session. It was understood that it would be recorded and that the recording would go into the membership video archives so that members could view it at any point. That was the understanding. And at the beginning of the session, I always tell people, usually these webinars are small enough that when we get to question and answers, or when the speakers want to have interaction with the participants, it's usually possible to even ask them to unmute themselves and speak their question rather than just putting it in chat. They could even turn their cameras on if they choose to. It's usually a small enough group that that's not terribly hard to manage. So that got me thinking, well, now I have a third party, this Otter, who is recording this. He's recording this without permission, basically, for lack of a better word. Now, I don't know. This happened in a couple of webinars. I know I specifically called it out in the second instance because I sort of expected it, and sort of made people aware of it, because we always tell people, if you want to remain private, because this is being recorded, we give people those options. But now there's another part to this because now another third party is now recording this, and we don't know what's going to happen with that content. Now, I'm not ascribing malicious intent to the person who did it. There could be any number of really good reasons that they did it. They may have a learning disability. They may be neurodivergent. They may have English as a second language, and having that assistive technology may be really valuable to them in the learning process. It could just be a time-saving thing. They just kind of were curious about the webinar, but didn't want to make time to attend, or couldn't make time to attend. And so they're kind of sending their little helper over to take notes for them. I don't know why the person did it. And again, this is not a judgmental, I'm not making judgment about any of it here. I'm just curious about what the implications and the questions are that we should be asking one another and thinking about. So there is a privacy issue because, again, I now have, I don't know where that content went. I don't even know exactly what the content was. I don't know which screen captures were taken. I don't really know. So just something to think about in terms of the privacy factor. Now, the second thing I said was, what does it mean to be a participant? And it was interesting because in one of the webinars recently that this occurred in, one of the things that the speaker was talking about was the fact that nowadays many people do consider a live virtual session as in person. Particularly younger generation, we don't make a distinction. Many people don't make a distinction between, hi, I met this person, meaning they only met them through a screen, as opposed to through physical airspace in a room. And there's less and less distinction for many people as to what in-person means. So what does in-person participation mean then in that sense? And so if this were, let's say this was a class, this was not, but let's say it was a class and attendance was something that you track, would this person be considered in attendance? I don't know if a physical human being actually listened or participated in any way, because I don't think that I saw any chat or anything like that come from, I think I called her Sue, the little Otter's companion. I don't know if that person was physically in the room. I don't know if they just clicked the link and set it off to set the Otter off to do its thing. I don't know. I don't know if this person was present in any way. So something to think about, because does that matter in your situation? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Again, there's not a right or wrong necessarily. It's just, these are questions. So what does participation mean in the world of AI assistance? Because again, this is not the only one. This happened to be the one they used. So what does that look like going forward? And that leads me to the third one, which is the design and delivery question. So I was already questioning sort of webinars in general, like, what is the value? Are there better ways to do this now? How long should it be? How short should it be? Should it be live? Should it be pre-recorded? There's a lot of different variations that we can use to deliver content. So if we're going to take the time to have live people presenting, there's certainly advantages in terms of being able to ask your questions, have a conversation, and things like that. But if just delivering the content is more important, maybe it doesn't have to be live. What are the implications of designing if I had, let's say I had a bunch of people come to a webinar and part of the plan was to put them into breakout rooms to have a discussion. Well, now I don't want to put a person in a room with an AI assistant. I want human beings talking to one another. And so then that's a whole other issue. It's like, again, back to the participation. Do I need to design for that? Do I need to design with the expectation that some of the participants will not actually be human participants? And what would that look like? And well, I don't know. And again, I have no answers. Today is all about questions. hopefully some of you have some answers. Some of you probably have some additional questions. So anyway, this is just to get us all thinking about this. And as everybody gets very excited about all the AI tools, and there's many amazing ones out there. There's, I mean, hundreds of them, I guess, thousand, I don't know. I'm sure somebody has a count or not. But just these are things that I think we should be having more conversations around, because yeah, they're fun, and yeah, they're great, and they're powerful, and they can do things, but we also need to be mindful of what they're doing and how they're doing it and how it impacts all of it. So anyway, that's my questions for today. Feel free to leave some answers in the comments or add some more questions or whatever you want to talk about. Anyway, see you next time.